Hello, and welcome to She Rises, the podcast where women in leadership take center stage. I'm Tiffany-O, your host and the founder of Virtual Partner, where we champion humanity in the workplace to build thriving organizations. With over 30 years of experience in change management and servant leadership, I'm here to bring you powerful stories, actionable insights, and inspiring conversations with trailblazing women who are breaking barriers and redefining success. Whether you're climbing the corporate ladder, leading your own venture, or looking for that next level of impact, this is your space to learn, to grow, and to rise. Let's dive in. Today, we are honored to have Shanise Pearce join us on the She Rises podcast. Now, Shanise is an inspiring leader, advocate, and TNBC triple negative breast cancer survivor. And as a public speaker, an advocate, and board member for organizations like the American Cancer Society and Susan G. Komen, Shanise uses her voice to champion health equity and cancer awareness. Her journey of resilience and empowerment has touched countless lives, and her mission is to inspire others, and that's no short of being extraordinary. So let's dive into her story and discover the transformational insight she has to share with us today. Welcome, Shanise.
Thank you. Wow, you make me sound good, girl. Thank you.
Because you are phenomenal and fabulous, just so
Thank you so
everyone knows.
much. I
I
am
am,
so appreciative.
oh, it's my pleasure. Listen, for everyone that's watching, Shanise and I connected on LinkedIn, and this is the power of network and the power of using your voice and establishing yourself as a subject matter expert. So she tagged on to a comment I made on LinkedIn. It resonated with her. We connected, and all of a sudden, I have this amazing woman in my network, my personal space, and on with Zoom with us today. So I'm very, very grateful, and I want to just encourage everyone, make sure you use your voice, get out there, get known, but be meaningful and purposeful about it. You just might meet another Shanise in your own space.
Aw. Or
So,
another Tiffany.
thank you, thank you, thank you.
That's
Okay,
right.
so what inspired you to become an advocate for health equity and cancer awareness?
Well, what inspired me was the fact that I was diagnosed with TNBC, which stands for triple negative breast cancer, in October of 2023.
Mm,
And for me, I was already going through preventative care because I found out that I carried the BRCA2 and the PMS2 gene mutations, which puts me at a very high risk for about 10 different types of cancers.
wow.
So I was already seeing specialists to make sure that I was remaining healthy, and if there were any types of issues or health concerns that came up, I was already in the right place to get those handled right away.
Mm,
Already, that's something that our community isn't aware of, even knowing that they can have genetic testing. And that is really what saved my life. And because of me having those genetic tests and me actually going in and seeing breast specialists and seeing doctors for my colon and getting colonoscopies before the recommended age and getting breast MRIs before the recommended age in addition to my mammograms, that's what really helped me to catch my cancer very, very early as
mm,
soon as it started. And because I was able to see a specialist when it was time for me to get another test, they were like, just go ahead and right around the corner. The test is ordered. You can do it right now.
mm,
And so the process that I've had to go through with my treatment, getting chemotherapy, losing my hair,
mm,
working at the same time, just doing all of that to get healthy. I wanted to give back to my community because of all the things that I've experienced. Now, I've worked in diversity, equity, and inclusion as well.
mm,
And so immediately when I saw certain disparities happening, I'm already unapologetically, authentically myself. So I
mm.
already spoke up. If I saw something, I was like, wait a minute, what is going on with that? If they said, go downstairs and go try on the wigs, and they came to me with a wig, and I was like, where are the wigs for black women? what is this? Like,
Mm,
where is the diversity here? Why don't I see any Black nurses here on
mm,
the floor for infusions? I'm pretty sure some applied. What's going on? So even though I was going through my treatment, I still kept a watchful eye of my surroundings. And so for
mm,
me, that just led to me joining groups like the American Cancer Society's Making Stride Against Breast Cancer. And I opted to sit on their board just so I can be more close to the mission and
mm,
the vision. And then I wanted to be able to, you know, go on media. And so when they had media events, they called me. I signed up to be the brand ambassador for
mm,
the Voices of Black Women Research Study, which is looking for 100,000 Black women ages 25 to 55 that have not been touched by cancer to follow their medical journey and understand the research as to why there are so many gaps and why we are dying at a faster rate than our counterparts, even when we're diagnosed at the same time. And then join Susan G. Komen. I sit on their board as well. I am
mm,
the only Black woman on their board for Columbus, Ohio.
mm,
And so that was very intentional and purposeful for me because when I went to their race, I did not see as much representation there. And representation matters because, yes, we can have allies, but us showing that we can survive and us taking control and leading the charge is something that's very important to me
mm,
because if I saw another Black woman, that had the same cancer that I had and she lived, it will give me some hope that yes, we can survive. And so that's why that was a very long explanation as to why I wanted to do advocacy,
mm.
but that is what advocacy means to me. And my pain has become my purpose and my living legacy, and that's what i I think about it every day, every minute of the day. What more can I do?
That is so powerful. Thank you very much, Shanise, for sharing your personal story. And there are a couple of things that really stand out, and I'll start with the last thing you said, and that is how you converted your pain into purpose. The other thing that resonates with me, Shanise, is what I heard from your story is that diversity, equity, and inclusion, yes, it was something that you learned at work,
Mhm.
but it wasn't just a thing that you did. It is a way of being, and looking
That's right.
for inclusion and representation everywhere you go is just a way of life. It's not a
That's right.
thing. It's not a thing.
Right.
So it can't be regulated or mandated. It's a way of
No.
being.
No.
And I really appreciate that, because you said what many of us are thinking, many of us that are human, whether you're Asian, Hispanic, immigrant into the United States, African, American, white, whatever it is, we all are looking for representation. And when we talk about survival, like your story of survival, we are looking for women like that we can identify with, that if
Hmm.
she did it, I can do it too.
That's
So
right.
it's less about a political movement, more about inspiration and empowerment so that others can feel whole. And I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
You said something else that I want to speak to for women in leadership, and it's a call to action. And it does connect back to representation. And that is, if you want to step into leadership, volunteer,
Hmm.
but volunteer with, as you mentioned, passion, turning your pain into purpose. So find an area in your life like Shanise did, and volunteer, step up into leadership and volunteer on boards. Most of us want coveted board roles, right? But it's very hard to do that if you're not really passionate about the
Hmm.
cause.
Right. Exactly.
So I encourage you, Shanice, you are an example worth imitating for women that are emerging leaders or in leadership roles. Use your voice on a board where you are have a passion, right? And Susan B. Komen is definitely a well-known brand, and also so is the American Cancer Society. These are brands, but this like helps your resume too. So I think
Yes.
I think
Yes.
like if you want to do something to help yourself professionally, do it in a way that's purposeful and that is a part of your own personal mission and professional vision, right? So,
Yes, I definitely agree with that. And for those people who are watching or listening to your podcast that feel like, okay, well, that's not a step right now I want to take in your organizations. So I okay, so I've been black my whole life, right? So
oh,
so
but you mean you can't change that,
no, I mean I mean, we could all be like Michael Jackson and try to reverse, but
right?
so but for me and for the Black community, these are experiences that we've had to endure forever. It's not something we can take off or, put back on when we feel like it.
Mm,
And so when I've worked in major corporations in Ohio, I've always been a part of their inclusion priorities or their centers of excellence.
mm,
So I helped create groups like the African American Network, Women's Initiative Network. I've companies will call them affinity groups, business resource groups, or employee resource groups. I've co-chaired many different types of employee resource groups or affinity groups in a number of organizations. If there are things that your listeners are passionate about, take a leap and go ahead and build those yourself and create those yourself. All you have to do is find other like-minded individuals in that organization, form your own group or make little small communities, and then it will grow and grow and grow, and then people will want to join. Raise your hand to step up and have a presentation or talk about things in your own team. One of my previous leaders, when the situation happened with George Floyd, I wanted to have real talk sessions.
mm.
And it was a very touchy subject. And people were nervous. They didn't know how to respond. But there were people that were also on the team that needed this safe space.
Yes.
And so I just created it. I just created it, and then became part of my brand. As so when there were different discussions, I moderated them. I used my leadership that I acquired on the team, as well as me being on different business resource groups, to kind of explain why this was important and why this mattered and why it mattered to me.
Mm.
And so because they saw that passion in me, other people wanted to do the same thing. So I feel like just because you're in an organization, it doesn't stop you from being who you are unapologetically and authentically, and leading the charge and something being a call to action for you.
I love it. Thank you very much for that sage advice. And, I think it's interesting. You talked about creating your own community and just being patient and watching that grow. That takes me to a question, and you can tell me how comfortable you are talking about this.
Mhm.
Everyone, I need you to know that Shanice she has an executive role in a
Mhm.
major corporation in the United States. So she when she's talking about how she's using her influence, it's at the VP level, right? So
Mhm.
she's already got that sweet seat, right? So Shanice, you can talk as much as you want about where you work and some of your journey. If you'd like to sort of share what your rise through the ranks has been like, I'd love to hear that. And then I want to circle back after we talk about your rise. I want to circle back to DE and I flipped and what that means for women's issues in some of the workplaces.
Okay. So I work in the banking industry. And yes, I am a vice president in the banking industry I work in like risk and compliance,
Mm-hmm.
and I am a project manager. My career, yes, I'm a vice president now, but of course, I haven't always been a vice president. And my journey has been very long, in my opinion, and tough. And I started as a secretary, as an administrative assistant, as a receptionist, all those roles. And that's what I thought I wanted to do with my career. I
Mm.
just enjoyed doing that. But I always had, when I reach this level, I'm going to be doing something else. And so when I got to the level where I supported a CEO of an organization, I said, okay, well, I need to move on to something else. And so at the time, I was in, excuse me, technology, the technology department, and I started to network, and I asked a director there if she needed assistance. And she said, well, you know what? I don't really need any help because I'm self-sufficient, but there's somebody on my team who might. And the person that was on her team actually became my mentor. And the
Mm.
work that she was doing was something that I said, you know what? I can do this. And she started to invite me to meetings that she was in. And then she started to give me some of the work that she was doing. Then I started presenting in the meeting. And then I started having my own roles and responsibilities, even though that was outside of the scope of work that I was already doing. Now, doing a role like administrative support gives you a lot of flexibility because you don't have really that much to do. So, I mean, it just depends on who you're supporting. Like, you make your own schedule. Like, if you're doing travel arrangements and things like that, it's very here nor there. So, it's what you make the role. So, for
Hmm.
me, I didn't want to just sit and be task driven and just do a few things and then be twiddling my thumbs for the rest of the day. I wanted to eventually move into something else. And when you're in a role like an administrative role or some other role that's kind of typecast, it's hard to use transferable skills to move out of that role unless you have a sponsor. Now, people are kind of confused about mentorship and sponsorship. A mentor is going to be like the woman that was helping me understand and, learn different things. A sponsor is somebody that's going to vouch for you and they can make things happen. And so her boss, that director, she actually created a position for me and in what I wanted to do. But because I was at a certain level, here's company politics, at the time, they did not want to offer me the position because it was a two pay band jump.
Mm.
And they said, well, that's a large increase. And the leader needed to justify why she would want to pay me more and she couldn't find somebody that was already at that level. So I opted to leave the organization,
Wow.
go to another company, take a role that was what I learned there, and then come back to the organization later. So, what ended up happening was I gained that experience in the area that I wanted to be in at the time. And then when I got back to that organization, I had 100% salary increase. 100%, if that'll tell you how low I was getting paid at that time. So it was a 100%.
They should have given you the two paid band jump.
Yes. So now I'm external, right? So coming in externally, you can't look at what I made when I was there. You have to pay me what's in the pay band for the role I'm applying because I am not an employee anymore. You can't give me that little 10%
Jump.
increase or
Mhm.
whatever, 3%, whatever they want to do. So I came back in at 100% salary increase. Still wasn't a VP, but I was at a higher level. I was at a higher pay band, still learned everything I needed to learn, continued to build connections, continued to join groups, continued to lead initiatives and, take charge of things. And then I was offered an opportunity from one of the vendors that I was working with there because they thought I was so amazing. So I left and went to their company where I had a chief of staff role, but because the company that they were doing business with, they reprioritized or restructured, they ended up dropping that contract. So now they didn't have any money to pay me. So as soon as I had started, I ended up getting laid off after like 3 months.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, so it was just a lot, but I went through a few iterations of going in different organizations, but utilizing all these different skills that I had. And using those skills, I was always able to, and again, keep those relationships that I have. I never stopped talking to people
Mm.
that I worked with in the past. I maintained those relationships. Used platforms like LinkedIn to keep in touch. I got recommendations from them about my work and how I worked and what type of employee I was inside and outside of the organization. And that helped me land my next role, and it was one that was in diversity, equity, and inclusion for Amazon corporate.
Mm.
And when I was working for Amazon corporate, I got to travel. I got to help people understand what Amazon corporate did for Amazon stores. That was a division that I was working in at the time, and help them understand their brand and be a leader in that way. That helped me with public speaking. That helped me learn about, vendors and being having a vendor table and doing those types of things. And so all of that helped me get back into the banking industry as a vice president.
Amazing.
So,
So,
yes.
so it's like, women, how this podcast is She Rises. And, I have an ambitious goal to shorten the leadership runway for women from the front door to the top floor in less than 10 years.
Mhm.
And I've been segmenting stories I'm hearing from women. She rises. How does she rise? Sometimes she climbs the ladder, the corporate ladder, just like boom, 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 stays where she is and she just stays on one trajectory. And then sometimes women cross bridges like you did, right? You built a bridge with your experience, crossover experience. You moved, right? And then
Mhm.
sometimes people just send the elevator down for them,
Mhm.
right? So, and that happened for you too. So
Yes.
it's like you had somebody sent the elevator down, you got off on one floor, and then you built a bridge over to get to the rest. So I guess I'm saying what I'm trying to say to people that are watching is that there's no one way to do it.
Right.
But what is one way you can think of to help us achieve shortening the time it takes to get where we are trying to go, particularly for women in advocacy and healthcare leadership or in some other form of leadership?
I will say be intentional about your purpose
Mm,
and stand in your conviction,
mm,
and do not sugarcoat who you are and what you want to be and what your
mm,
goals are. Because a lot of the times, now I was laid off about 5 times in between all of that. I just didn't share all those things, but I always dusted myself off and got right back up, even though it was hard, right? So I would want to share with people that, for one, you can't give from an empty cup,
mm,
right? And so you have to put yourself first. If it's not for you, then it's not meant to be, right? And look at each experience as one door closes, another one opens up. Because each and every time I was laid off, or they like to use the words rift, they had a
mm-hmm,
reduction in force, every opportunity that happened after that was better than the last time. And guess what? I didn't even think about that last time, you know? And the roles when you work at companies and you're like, I don't even remember that job. That wasn't for you then. You know what I mean? Where you're at now is where you're going to be, and you'll know and feel it when something is meant for you, because you're going to want to go there. It doesn't feel like a task or a job or a chore. It feels like something that you want to be involved in. And if it is a job that's tedious for you, find other things that could preoccupy your day, that gives you what you need so that you can keep going into what you want to do. Because let's say that you are leading a group, an employee resource group or something like that, and you realize that you helped bring in more diverse staff. That might parlay itself into a job in a different area, because now eyes are on you, because these groups have a lot of leadership visibility. So
mm,
now they're seeing how you're working, how you're interjecting, what you're giving back to the organization in addition to your regular job responsibilities. These are volunteer roles. So you're already showing that skill set that you have. You're strategic, you're tactical, you know how to manage your time, because you're doing all of these things, right? So people need to really open up their mind to look at all of the skills that you're bringing to the table, and know how to speak to, when you're in a job interview, what you did and how that applies to the job. I have so many skills in my tool belt that people are just so surprised that when I apply for roles that have nothing to do with what they think, like what it says in the job description, and I let them know how it does apply because of the way it's explained. So people just really have to understand what their skills are.
mhm,
Don't be afraid to go out there and apply, because women are more prone to, if there's 10 job skills, if they don't have all 10, they don't apply. when a man will only have four and apply
And
and
get the
still get the
job.
job. Right. Yes. And the pay. And guess what? You'll be training him.
Yes. So what I'm hearing, let's just recap. So as we think about how to shorten the leadership runway, so let's say you're an emerging leader, you're starting out fresh out of college, you're at the front door, maybe you're the admin, the receptionist,
Hmm.
but you've got more in your belly. You've got fire inside. You've got a big audacious goal and a big vision.
Hmm.
Do not be held captive by the job that you have.
No.
You can lead from your seat
Hmm.
and what that looks like in practical terms. Your job title does not limit you from being the chair of a committee in your workplace,
Right.
the organizer of a BRG or affinity group, nor does it prevent you from being vocal about where you see yourself in the
Right.
organization.
Right.
And it doesn't prohibit you from reaching out and establishing a solid power base, a network of others in the net in your organization that are where you want to be.
Hmm.
Establish those authentic relationships. I'm not saying be a user. I'm saying be real, but be
Yes.
intentional. That's what I'm hearing you say you
Yes.
did.
Yes.
And you need to own this, right? Part of
Yes.
shortening the runway is us, the role we take and positioning
Hmm.
our mindset. And you said something powerful. You cannot give from an empty cup.
That's right.
So if you want to lead transformation and you know that they want a PMP certification, then while you have that receptionist job, use your time at the desk to study
That's
with this
right. That's
man.
right. Right. Because somebody will go by and they'll see you like this. What are you doing? Oh, I'm just taking a training. Because a lot of the time, the organization will be paying for that and they'll cover that.
Yes,
So go ahead and go. I got
yes.
my Scrum Master certification because, and when I was an assistant, because I was like, where's everybody going? They were like, oh, we going to this training. I was like, well, I'm on the team. Why can't I go? And I went and I got my Scrum Master certification. And guess what? I was an application enhancement coordinator, which was more a word of a technical PM for the Scrum team.
Hello. So
Yes. So,
this is how we do it. So, okay, and then ownership. So, one is mentoring, one is sponsorship, the third is ownership. So, those three have to work together. Powerful.
yes.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so let's take our leadership conversation more a bit more globally. And I promised that we would bring it back to
Hmm.
DE&I flipped. That
Hmm.
is, for those of you who are watching, sign up for my new webinar, which is called DE&I flipped. And of course, we're going to talk about the three shifts all leaders need to make to reinvigorate humanity in the workplace in the age of the death of DE&I. So let's talk about this. What does this look like in yours, since you're in a corporate environment? We're talking about women's issues. What does all this look like with all the noise around the role of DE&I, its legality and legitimacy?
So, what it looks like for me and for other women in the organization is our voices are even more amplified
Mm.
because there are a lot of people don't really know what DEI means. It doesn't just mean that somebody black got hired through affirmative action. Like,
You
that's
know,
not
that's
what
what
it means.
everybody thinks it means.
Yes, that's what everybody thinks that it means, but it doesn't. And so for me, being somebody who's passionate about DEI, it is continuing to amplify my voice and help people to understand what it means. It means somebody that you're sitting next to that is from the LGBTQIA plus community. It means a veteran. It means somebody that is older or somebody that's younger because of ageism. It's somebody who's coming to work wearing a turban or, or it's, so those are the things that it, talks about somebody that has, like for myself, that has a disability that you cannot see.
Mm.
So accessibility for when right now I'm in recovery, when I'm fatigued, what does that mean? How am I performing when I am on a call with other stakeholders and my brain fog, it gets the best of me and I can't remember or I can't gather the words to what I'm saying. It's me saying, you know, give me a minute, this is what's going on, and I need to allow myself grace. And the others around you allowing grace as well, and them really truly understanding. It's getting back to knowing oneself. And if someone does not know and understand, helping to share that message with them and understanding what role the organization takes or what's their stance on DEI. And if it's not something that's for you, you making a decision to go somewhere where you're appreciated. It's
Mm.
okay to say, well, I mean, I know it might be hard if people don't have that situation financially for them to do, but putting yourself in spaces where you know that you are being appreciated for who you are and what you bring to the table. And the organization that I work in still have centers of excellence around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and have pockets of where they support all different cultures and aspects and keep that at the forefront so that their employee base is they feel comfortable, wanted, appreciated.
You know what? It's interesting. I love what you said about picking a culture where you can thrive. You know, you grow where you are planted, but don't put your seed in soil
Mhm.
that will not grow for
That's
you.
right.
And so we do need to be intentional about that. And that brings me to this thought. Tell me what you think about this, Candace. Whether it's called DE&I or not, whether your organization has, let's say they're receiving federal funds and they can't have an official program. That does not mean that they are not inclusive and that they
Right.
don't embrace diversity, equity, inclusion. That is what you can see in the fabric of the people who work there. And
Right.
that is what I believe as women and as all of us as humans in the workplace, we have a responsibility to reinvigorate humanity in the workplace. If you're a leader, we have, as a human being, an obligation to inspire others by being inclusive of all of those voices. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the flip on this is, before we get up in arms about a program, let's look at the fabric of the culture
Right.
and look at the base of your leadership team, the
Mm-hmm.
executive leadership team. What does it
Right.
look like, and what's the tone, and what are
Right.
your leaders behaviors like? When you see misalignment there, even if there is a program, perhaps you need to look for another place, because
Or you can't, we're not going to reach everybody, right?
right,
So
okay,
let's say you have five leaders and three of them are pricks and two of them aren't, right? Go with the two that you know are the ones that can possibly use the power of persuasion,
yes,
to help change the mindset. Because, real quick story, when I was on this team, I had a couple of leaders who, but when the situation happened with George Floyd, that they kind of led with an iron fist.
wow,
And I had a lot of anxiety. I would go into meetings feeling like I was on guard, like I was on the defensive. And one day I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to deal with this anymore. And when I went in the meeting, something had happened to me in the workplace, and I felt like it was a toxic environment. And I had made a comment that I was going to go to human resources, and that offended my leader at the time.
mm,
But no one was asking me if I was okay. So when I went to this meeting and it was over Zoom, I said, why am I feeling like I'm being attacked when I am the person who was attacked? And I said, what's not going to happen on this call is that I'm going to be on a defensive. And if I feel like I'm in a hostile work environment and I want to use my options as an employee to go to human resources, then that is what I'm going to do. And I said, I don't appreciate the tone that you all are giving me to make me feel like you've already spoken to the aggressor, took their side, and then came here for me to defend myself. And when I said that, you should have seen the look on their faces, and the working relationship flipped 360
mm,
from that point on. And I was put into a program to start the process to become a vice president. And there was like trust was earned and all of these things. So it just depends on the person, and how you deliver the message
yeah,
and when and if they get it. It might not be the first time, right? But everything is an educational moment. You know, and
yeah,
I'm able to have people come to me and ask questions that they would be afraid to ask somebody else.
I love
And
it.
they know that they can have an honest, open conversation with me.
Yeah, I can imagine being on your team and having you as a people leader must be incredible, Shanice. So hats off to
Thank
you.
you.
What's as you begin to think about the strategic advantage of having diverse representation of women in leadership roles
Mhm.
in healthcare and advocacy, are there any strategic advantage in terms of like enhancing decision making or innovation or anything like that?
Well, with the breast cancer journey or having a gene mutation, for me, the advantage is I have lived experience,
Mm,
right? And so when I'm speaking about things that have occurred in my journey, it's true. And people who are experiencing those same things, they're like, oh, okay. And they can ask me questions and know that I am not just coming from a place where I've researched something and I have stats that are coming from, social media or whatever it is. It's because it has actually happened to me. I took the time to ask the questions, talk to the doctors, make and build relationships. And now I am sharing in resources to help uplift and empower and grow someone because I want to see them live and get the same successful outcome that I got. So that is an advantage for when you hear people advocate and speak. It's from a place that either they've experienced it themselves or they are a caregiver or were a caregiver that seen that side of the experience. So they're also able to provide tips and tricks of things that has helped them. Even if you are a black person, a person of color, or a different race that, or an ally, because there are allies out there that will benefit for us and say, I'm going to use my power as being somebody that's of a different race to step in and open the door for you to have the opportunity to talk about representation. I'm going to use my power and my abilities that way.
yeah.
So it just really depends on how you utilize. Though what is this how does the saying go? The people who have power have the greatest responsibility or something like that.
Yes, with
Yes.
response, yes, with
With
power comes
responsibility comes
power.
yes.
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 Power comes responsibility. Yes.
Yes.
I agree. Okay, so let's take a snapshot in time. I want to shift the conversation a little bit. I want to go back to your 25 year when you were 25, rising through leadership. Tell me if if you have a reflection, what advice would you give your 25-year-old self?
So I would say you don't have to have all the answers right away.
Mm,
Trust the process, trust your instincts. Don't be afraid to take up space. Say yes to opportunities that stretch you. People like to always say, "Oh, I'm not doing that's not part of my job. I'm not doing that extra." But that stretch will help you be where you're at, where you need to be, and don't let fear of the unknown keep you from stepping into leadership. Most importantly, take care of yourself.
mm,
Again, you can't pour from an empty cup. I
mm.
was empty a lot of the times,
Wow.
and I tried to pour from it, and all it did was build anxiety in me, and I didn't know I had it. And we had children, and guess what? My children have anxiety too.
Mm,
And so these are all learned behaviors, right? So I would tell my 25-year-old self, because at the time we had two little girls, you know, to just give myself grace, trust the process. What's for you will be for you
mm.
when the time is right, and continue to learn and grow as you step into leadership. Because at that time, I was a leader, I was their mommy.
Oh, that is so powerful. So powerful. Okay, one word on your view of leadership.
Courage.
Powerful. All right. Who's your superhero? And it can be a character that you identify with when you were a little girl, but who's your superhero
Who is my superhero?
or
I
your
want to say,
hero?
I want to say my grandma.
Grandma. And what books are you currently reading or would you recommend?
I would recommend a book called Capacity
Mm,
by Dr. Lisa Wicker. And that book is exactly what the word says, capacity. Are you at your capacity, and what do you do
mm,
to make sure that you don't overflow your cup? And what are the steps and tools that you will take to make sure that when you're getting to your capacity, how you handle that? How do you handle yourself as a leader, as a
mm,
woman in the world, in this diverse world?
mm. Now that's real right there. As a
Mm.
as an entrepreneur, and I think most of us, when we get to the age that I am right now, at the middle, you have responsibilities above you, below you, on all sides. If you're in business and community, parents and children, and then yourself there.
Mhm.
So I can that really resonates. I can't wait to grab that book off the shelf.
Yes. Yes.
I think that might be the first book club conversation that we all need
Yes,
to
because
have.
it actually has activities in it that you can do when you're reading it. And the woman who wrote the book, actually this year is the first year that she actually is not doing her event, but she holds an event every year called Career Mastered.
Mm,
And it celebrates diversity in women in leadership that help drive the charge for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And she
wow.
gives awards. There's a ball, there's a dance. Every year I go to it. And I was looking forward to going to it. It was about to happen. She usually does it during Women's History Month in March because it's all about women. But this year was going to be in April and it was going to be in Atlanta, Georgia,
Yeah.
and it got canceled. And I'm not sure if it's because of everything that has happened with DE&I and because the event is solely around DE&I,
Yes, yes. I think
and
we're
so
gonna
sponsors might not have felt comfortable.
Yeah, I think that goes back to your one word on leadership, where we're going to need courage, but
Hmm.
we also have to flip the script, right? On
Yes.
how we talk about these very important issues. Thank you
Hmm.
so much. Okay, now let's dive into your personal brand. I
Okay.
love your mission to inspire and empower through advocacy. Can you talk about your vision for surviving TNBC, My Brave Path, and how you see it evolving in the future?
So, how I see my advocacy evolving in the future is that I am going to leave the corporate environment, have the courage.
Is it, am I the first one hearing this?
No, no, no. I have plans. I have big plans, girl.
Okay, tell us your plans. I'm
Okay, so
excited.
my big plans are to eventually leave the corporate workforce and be my own leader and lead the charge. I do have a business that I started, but it has not officially launched yet. But it encompasses everything that I've been through in my corporate career, all the way up into what I've experienced in my cancer journey, listen to this, drum roll, it's called the Advocates Table. And the reason why it's called the Advocates Table is because, and the tagline is pull up a seat. And what that means is that anyone who wants to advocate for healthcare, education, one of my focuses is the a Black community, underrepresented and underserved communities, and helping us to understand our bodies and taking charge and being that voice. And with triple negative breast cancer in the state of Ohio, women are dying at higher rates, mortality rates than the national average. And
Mm.
so I testified at the Senate Health Committee to pass a bill making March Triple Negative Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the state of Ohio. Yes.
Wow.
So I want to continue to be the face. When somebody thinks about Black women and triple negative breast cancer, I want them to think about Shanise Pearce and what it means to live because we deserve to live.
Wow, this is powerful. Congratulations. I'm so
Thank
glad I asked
you.
this question. I will be coming to Ohio for an event in April, and I can't wait to hopefully coordinate the schedule and look you up and connect with you
Yes, of
in
course.
real life. That would be amazing. And when you do your launch party for your new brand, call me to MC the thing. Uh,
Yes.
I got you.
Thank you.
Oh man, this has been an amazing episode. As we wrap up today's enlightening conversation, I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to you, Shanise, for sharing your invaluable insights and experience with us, with me, and those who are going to come behind me and listen. Your journey and dedication to advocacy and leadership are truly inspiring.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a pleasure. At Virtual Partner, we're committed to transforming workplaces into hubs of innovation and inclusivity. And we're on a mission to gather insights and stories from women leaders worldwide to better understand the challenges and the triumphs they face. Your voice matters, and we'd love to hear from you. So before we go, if you are inspired by what you have heard today and you want to join us on our mission to empower women leaders, don't forget to participate in the She Rises survey at virtualpartner.biz/how she rises. And participating in this survey will help shape the future podcast discussions and initiatives aimed at supporting women in leadership roles. Together, we can create a future where equity prevails and every woman has an opportunity to rise.
That's
Thank you
right.
for tuning in to She Rises. Stay inspired, stay empowered, and keep rising.
That's
Until
right.
next time.
That's a wrap for today's episode of She Rises. I hope you found inspiration, insight, and the motivation to keep pushing forward on your leadership journey. Remember, success isn't about reaching the top. It's about lifting others as you rise. If you love this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other powerhouse women in your life. Follow me, Tiffany-O, and Virtual Partner for more resources on leadership, organizational growth, and creating workplaces where humanity thrives. Until next time, keep rising, keep leading, and keep making an impact.